Our story begins with a mother racing against time, her 4-year-old son Mustafa in her arms as she rushes into a hospital emergency room. The medical staff takes the child from her desperate embrace, only to deliver devastating news moments later. Her son has passed away. As police arrive on the scene, they discover disturbing evidence, signs of strangulation on the boy's neck. All eyes turn to Israa, the mother, whose face reveals a complex mix of grief, fear, and something else the officers can't quite identify. What could drive a mother to commit such an unthinkable act? Was Israa a victim pushed beyond her breaking point by years of abuse and humiliation in her husband's family home? Or was there something more sinister at work? This tragic story explores how family relationships can deteriorate into a living nightmare and the devastating consequences that can follow when someone feels they have no way out. Join us as we uncover the full story of Israa and Mustafa, examining what happens when a person is pushed to their absolute limit. What price might a mother pay to protect her dignity? And how can a loving parent transform into someone capable of harming their own child? The events begin on a tense morning around 6:30. A distressed mother carries her child into a nearby emergency hospital, frantically begging the medical staff to save her son. A nurse quickly takes the boy from her arms and rushes him into the emergency room. But after examining him, they find no vital signs. The child shows no pulse, no breathing, nothing to indicate life remains. A doctor arrives to confirm what the nurses already suspect. The child has passed away. The medical team keeps the boy in the emergency room for further examination, while the mother waits anxiously at reception, unaware that her world is about to collapse entirely. As the medical team examines the child more carefully, they notice something alarming: clear marks of strangulation around the boy's neck. This discovery immediately raises suspicions that the child did not die for natural causes but was murdered. The hospital staff immediately contacts police, requesting an investigation team be sent to examine what appears to be a crime scene. Soon after, police officers arrive at the hospital. They examine the child's body and confirm the medical team's suspicions. The marks on the child's neck strongly suggest he died by strangulation. When they ask how the child arrived at the hospital, they learn about the woman waiting anxiously in the reception area. The hospital staff has carefully kept her there without making her feel detained, giving police the opportunity to determine if she might be involved in the child's death. An officer approaches the woman, but before he can begin questioning her, she rushes toward him, desperately asking about her son's condition. She begins explaining what happened, visibly distraught about her son. The police confirm that she is indeed the mother, that the child is 4 years old, named Mustafa Hafnawi, and that her name is Israa. She tells them that everything had been normal the previous evening. Her son had dinner and went to bed as usual. She typically wakes him at 6 in the morning for breakfast, but when she tried to wake him that day, he wouldn't respond no matter what she did. That's when she decided to rush him to the hospital. Israa tells her story with all the emotions you would expect from a distressed mother, and the police officer sympathizes with her, try to calm her down. However, they also notice something unusual in her expression. Her face shows not just worry, but tension and fear. Something doesn't quite add up. Because of this, they discreetly keep her under observation without letting her realize she's being watched. Meanwhile, little Mustafa's body is transferred to the forensic unit to determine the exact cause of death. The report reveals something shocking. The strangulation occurred only about 30 minutes before his arrival at the hospital. The timing raises serious questions. Before we continue with this heartbreaking story, I want to thank you for joining us. If you're finding this narrative compelling, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. Your support allows us to bring you more powerful stories like this one. Now, let's return to Isra's tragic tale and discover what events led to this devastating morning. The police begin investigating Isra's background, questioning her to determine if she might have been involved in her son's death, or if there was something that could have pushed her to such an extreme act. They discover that Israa had been experiencing serious conflicts with her husband, and their relationship had deteriorated to the point where they were on the verge of divorce. In fact, The very day of the incident was supposed to be when their divorce would be finalized. The investigation also reveals tensions between Israa and her husband's family, with reports suggesting the conflicts had sometimes escalated to physical assault. Yet something about Isra's demeanor doesn't match what you'd expect from someone capable of killing her own child, deepening the police's confusion and suspicion. To understand what led to this tragedy, we need to go back to the beginning of Isra's story and trace the path that brought her to this terrible moment. Israa grew up in Egypt, specifically in the city of El Sin Belawine in the Mansoura Governorate. She was a simple, kind-hearted girl with innocent features who lived a modest but content life with her loving family. From a young age, Israa preferred peace and quiet, often helping her mother in the kitchen and following her instructions without complaint. Through years of helping her mother, she became extremely skilled at housework. Her father, a mathematics teacher, loved spending time with her after dinner each day, creating a special bond between them. Israa was also beloved by her older brother, who often described her as having the purest heart and a soul cleaner than milk. After completing high school, Israa enrolled in the Faculty of Commerce, where she proved to be a dedicated and hard-working student. During this time, a young man named Hafnawi from her town developed feelings for her and eventually confessed his love. While Israa was flattered by his attention, she remained primarily focused on her studies, unable to fully reciprocate his feelings at that time. Hafnawi was patient, waiting for Israa to complete her education. After her graduation, he decided to take the next step and formally propose marriage. He visited her home and spoke openly with her father about his circumstances, with Israa present for the conversation. He explained that, after marriage, they would initially live in his family's house, an apartment his father had built specifically for him. He promised that once his financial situation improved, he would purchase a separate apartment where he and Israa could live independently, away from his family to avoid any potential conflicts. During this time, Israa was particularly close to her sister, with whom she shared everything. Israa told her sister about Hafnawi's proposal and asked for her opinion, especially since she was already feeling comfortable with him. Her sister encouraged the relationship, saying Hafnawi seemed good-hearted and would take care of her. She also noted that his plan to eventually get them their own apartment was a positive sign. Reassured by this conversation, Israa told her father she agreed to marry Hafnawi. Her father invited Hafnawi's family to make a formal proposal, and both families welcomed the match, especially since they were from the same area and had known each other for many years. The couple became engaged, and during this period, their feelings for each other grew stronger. Israa began to feel that Hafnawi truly loved her and that his family was genuinely kind, given how well they treated her during the engagement. This encouraged her to accept the idea of temporarily living in the family house. A deep bond formed between them, built on what seemed like genuine love and respect. In 2019, they married after a love story that had blossomed over less than a year. Despite knowing that Hafnawi and his family were not financially well off and that she would need to adjust to a lower standard of living than she was accustomed to, Israa accepted these circumstances. She told herself, "It's okay. Everything is worth it for a husband and a family who love me." For the first year of their marriage, Israa lived in genuine happiness. Her relationship with her husband was strong, and she got along well with her in-laws. But as the saying goes, nothing lasts forever. Slowly, conflicts began to emerge between Israa and her husband's family. What started as minor disagreements gradually escalated into serious problems. Whenever an issue arose, and Israa complained to Hafnawi about how his family treated her, he found himself in a difficult position. Sometimes he would side with his wife, other times with his parents, particularly his mother. This pattern of back and forth continued for several months, with constant arguments and tensions between Israa and her in-laws. Then came news that should have been purely joyful. Israa discovered she was pregnant. She was overjoyed at the prospect of having the child she had always dreamed of, seeing it as a blessing and perhaps compensation for the difficulties she had been experiencing. When she told Hafnawi, he couldn't contain his happiness, hugging her tightly and repeatedly telling her to take care of herself. But with this joy came new concerns. Hafnawi realized that their responsibilities would increase significantly with a child, and he needed to find better employment to improve their living conditions. Fortune smiled on him when he discovered a promising job opportunity in Saudi Arabia. He discussed the prospect with Israa and his family, who all encouraged him to pursue it. Israa was particularly supportive, hoping that once Hafnawi's financial situation improved, he would fulfill his promise to buy them their own apartment, allowing them to move away from his family and raise their child in peace. The job was in a pharmacy, and after Hafnawi moved to Saudi Arabia and began working, his financial situation did indeed start to improve. He began making plans for the future, determined to provide the best possible life for his soon-to-be-born child. Back in Egypt, however, Isra's relationship with her in-laws was deteriorating rapidly. What had once been merely insults and verbal abuse escalated to physical assaults on multiple occasions. During this difficult time, Israa gave birth to her son, Mustafa, yet the mistreatment continued for months afterward. Through it all, Israa remained silent, enduring the abuse for the sake of her husband. She knew he was working hard abroad for her and their son, and she didn't want to burden him with her problems, fearing it would cause him stress while he was alone in a foreign country. The only thing that kept her going was the hope that once his finances stabilized, Hafnawi would keep his promise, purchase their own apartment, and they could finally live peacefully away from his family. Israa often confided in her mother, crying as she admitted, "I can't live like this. I can't even breathe." Her mother would try to comfort her, saying, "Be patient, my daughter. This is how it is for all girls. Every family home has its struggles." Eventually, Israa concluded that there was only one solution to escape the abuse and humiliation: to take Mustafa and go live with her parents. She reasoned that by reducing contact with her in-laws, the problems would diminish. She still didn't want to tell Hafnawi about the beatings and abuse while he was abroad, wanting him to remain focused on his work without unnecessary worry. Despite moving out, Israa never prevented her in-laws from seeing their grandson. Whenever they wanted to spend time with Mustafa, she would bring him to them, let him visit for a while, then take him back to her parents' house. This arrangement continued for some time. Then came the day that would dramatically alter the course of events. Israa was returning home from an errand, walking down the street where her family lived, when she noticed people looking at her strangely, with worried or judgmental expressions. Confused by this treatment, especially since she barely knew most of the neighbors, she wondered what could be causing such reactions. Israa approached a neighbor she trusted and asked if she knew why people were talking about her. The answer was shocking and devastating. The neighbor revealed that Hafnawi's mother had been spreading vicious rumors, claiming that Israa was having multiple affairs with men while her husband was working abroad. The mother-in-law was also questioning Isra's honor, suggesting that she had left her husband's family home so she could freely engage in inappropriate behavior. Even more disturbing, the rumors also targeted Isra's sister, claiming she too was involved in these alleged relationships and brought men to the house. According to the gossip, Isra's family was aware of this behavior and didn't object. The mother-in-law was telling people that they had made a mistake in allowing their son to marry Israa, saying they should have chosen someone who knew how to raise children properly and would make a better mother for their grandson. She also accused Israa of preventing their grandson from seeing his grandparents, claiming that on the rare occasions when he did visit, the child spoke badly of them because Israa encouraged such disrespect. This was the breaking point for Israa. While she had forgiven many wrongs done to her for the sake of her son, she couldn't tolerate these attacks on her sister, who had always been close to her. Though their relationship had weakened after Isra's marriage, partly because she wanted to avoid further issues with her husband's family, her sister remained dear to her heart. Israa decided she could no longer remain silent. She resolved to call Hafnawi in Saudi Arabia and tell him everything, from the physical assaults by his parents to the vicious rumors they were spreading about her and her sister. She explained how they were destroying her reputation among the neighbors, and that the situation had become unbearable. She told him she had tolerated a great deal for his sake and for Mustafa, but she couldn't endure any longer. She insisted that he return to Egypt as soon as possible to divorce her. Hafnawi tried to calm her down and suggested more peaceful solutions, but Israa was adamant about getting a divorce. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, he agreed to return to Egypt on August 6th to address the issues. He assured her that they would find a solution, but if she still insisted on divorce after their discussion, he would grant her wish. Israa responded that she wanted nothing except peace, a tranquil life for herself and her son, away from constant conflict. She emphasized that she had never prevented Mustafa from seeing his grandparents when appropriate and had never encouraged him to speak disrespectfully of them. She had always been careful to protect him from negative influences, keeping a close eye on his behavior and development. After this conversation, Israa began gathering all her and Mustafa's belongings that remained in the apartment at Hafnawi's family house. She then moved permanently to her parents' home to wait for her husband's return from Saudi Arabia. Hafnawi was torn between his desires to preserve his marriage and relationship with his son, whom he loved deeply, and to maintain good relations with his parents, not wanting to cause them distress or be disobedient. He returned to Egypt on August 6th as promised and met with Israa, trying every possible approach to reconcile with her. He pointed out that by insisting on divorce, she was destroying their family, and their son would grow up separated from one or both parents. He emphasized that Mustafa was innocent and shouldn't be kept away from either parent. But Israa remained resolute in her decision. She stated that while she could forgive many things, she could not tolerate having her reputation questioned or allow her and her sister's characters to be defamed. Seeing that no solution would work and that Israa would not be swayed, Hafnawi finally accepted the inevitable. They decided to proceed with the divorce on August 9th, 2023, with Hafnawi agreeing to bring an official to carry out the proceedings. On that fateful day, Israa went to her room and prayed for guidance, hoping that perhaps her perspective would change or that she would find some peace. After finishing her prayer, she sat reflecting on everything that had happened. She thought about the 4 years of her life that felt wasted, bringing her nothing but pain. She regretted following her heart rather than her mind when making decisions. When Israa left her room, she saw Mustafa standing before her. She gazed at him, lost in troubled thoughts. She told herself that she had wronged him by bringing him into this world with parents like these. No matter what happened next, she would always carry the memory of her suffering, and every time she looked at her son, she would be reminded of all the harm she had endured. She would forever live with this guilt. In the midst of these dark thoughts, while looking at her son with sorrowful eyes, Israa did the unthinkable. She grabbed a pillow and placed it over Mustafa's face, preventing him from breathing. The little boy struggled beneath her hands, but was helpless against her strength. His resistance gradually weakened until finally he stopped moving entirely. When Israa removed the pillow from his face, her expression showed terror, shock, and immediate regret. She couldn't comprehend what she had just done or why she had acted in such a way. She paced around in disbelief until convincing herself that there might still be hope. Perhaps her son could be revived. She picked up Mustafa's lifeless body and rushed to the nearest emergency hospital. But it was too late. The doctors examined the child and confirmed what Israa already knew deep down. Mustafa had died from suffocation. The police were called, Israa was arrested, and the investigation began. She was detained pending the case's resolution. The days in prison were filled with overwhelming emotions for Israa. Unbearable regret for killing her son, the only person she truly lived for, and fear she awaited what she assumed would be a death sentence. Yet her fear of death seemed insignificant compared to the crushing guilt of having killed her own child. She tried to comfort herself with the thought that perhaps in death she would be reunited with Mustafa, but then realized that as an innocent child, he would surely deserve heaven, while as his killer, she would face damnation. The realization that she might never see her son again, not even in an afterlife, intensified her grief. She would often cry as if speaking directly to Mustafa, begging for his forgiveness and telling him how desperately she missed him. On May 28, 2024, the judge reviewed the case files. Isra's lawyer attempted to defend her by emphasizing the extreme pressure she had faced from her husband's family. After a lengthy trial and unsuccessful defense, Israa was sentenced to death. While her family, especially her sister, was devastated by the verdict, Israa herself accepted it with resignation, as if ready for any punishment. But the story wasn't over. Isra's lawyer managed to file an appeal, and this time, the judge approached the case with more compassion. He recognized that Israa had not premeditated the crime, that she genuinely regretted the loss of her son, and that extraordinary circumstances had pushed her to act without fully understanding what she was doing. The judge decided to review the case files again, this time with a more empathetic perspective. He began to see Israa more as a victim than a cold-blooded murderer and felt that the death penalty might be too severe. He determined that he needed to hear directly from Israa about what had happened. On December 10, 2024, the appeal hearing took place. The judge asked Israa to stand before him and tell her complete story so he could better understand whether her actions were motivated by revenge against her husband's family or if she had killed her son as a direct result of the wrongs they had done to her. Israa stood before the court and explained, "My father-in-law treated me badly, and my husband was living in Saudi Arabia. I was living in their house, enduring everything that happened to me. I wasn't fully aware of what I was doing, and if I had been aware, I would never have done this. How could I possibly kill my son?" The judge found her testimony credible and was convinced by her story. In the appeal session, the judge reduced Isra's sentence from death to life imprisonment. However, this change meant little to Israa, who had already lost what mattered most in her life. Whether she was imprisoned, executed, or even acquitted made no difference to her now. She would forever live with the burden of what she had done, whether inside prison walls or outside them. Perhaps execution would have been easier for her to bear. When Hafni learned of what had happened, he visited Israa in prison after the first court session. He asked her why she had done it, what their innocent child had done to deserve such a fate. He told her he would have done anything for her, but he never expected she would kill their son. He wept for the loss of Mustafa and wondered if his decision to work in Saudi Arabia had contributed to the tragedy by preventing him from maintaining balance between his family and his wife. Ultimately, he decided to divorce Israa while she remained in prison. Hafni's family never attended any of Isra's trial sessions. When questioned about the incident and Isra's claims of mistreatment, they denied everything. They insisted their relationship with her had been good, and while there were issues, they were minor, typical household problems not worth mentioning. They suggested Israa was mentally unstable and expressed sadness over their grandson's death, especially that it came at the hands of his own mother. They claimed that when Hafni returned from abroad, they feared a divorce might occur because of them, potentially destroying their son's marriage. They had tried to repair the relationship with Israa to avoid being a burden on their son. But according to them, she was determined to separate and insisted on divorce because she claimed she had endured too much. They accused her of fabricating events and preventing them from seeing their grandson after she moved to her family's home, as a form of punishment against them. And so Israa remains in prison, serving her life sentence. No one truly knows the full truth of this tragic story. Was Israa genuinely subjected to the mistreatment and abuse she claimed occurred in her husband's family home? Hafni's family continues to deny any such behavior. Those who knew Israa well understood that her son was the most important person in her life, and they find it difficult to believe she would ever have considered harming him under normal circumstances. What is clear is that Israa was under tremendous pressure. It's not easy to exist in an environment where you feel rejected and isolated, holding on only for the sake of your child. Israa had reached her breaking point. The public humiliation of having her honor slandered without justification was too much to bear. Walking among people unable to hold your head high because of false accusations is a special kind of torture. Perhaps Israa acted against her son because she felt suffocated and wanted to eliminate what she perceived as the source of her vulnerability, to escape the burden she was living under and remove anyone's ability to force her into situations she couldn't tolerate. In her desperation, she didn't realize that by doing so, she was destroying the only real purpose she had in life. Something inside her took control, continuously reminding her of the time she had wasted and the years lost to nothing. until it overtook her mind completely and drove her to commit an act she would never have believed herself capable of. In a matter of moments, Israa transformed from a loving mother into a criminal. But we must ask, was the only crime the physical act of suffocation? Or were there psychological crimes committed against Israa beforehand that no one acknowledged or addressed? Every household has problems. No home is entirely free of conflict. The existence of problems is natural and can even be a sign of strong family bonds. What's crucial is that when problems arise, we attempt to solve them rather than allowing them to accumulate and worsen. In family homes, there must be awareness that newcomers to the family, who come from respectable backgrounds, deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. If they experience mistreatment or humiliation, they should never remain silent, but should take a stand to prevent recurrence and put an end to the issue. Before we end today's story, I want to ask you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Thank you for staying with us through this tragic tale. The story of Israa and Mustafa may have concluded, but similar tragedies continue to unfold behind closed doors. Homes are being destroyed because of interference and lack of privacy. Relationships are breaking apart due to the same issues that plagued Israel's marriage. Young people are forced to abandon true love because of family conflicts. Children are left caught between parents who separate for these very reasons. Little Mustafa was an innocent victim who paid the ultimate price for circumstances beyond his control. His story serves as a painful reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control when communication breaks down and abuse is allowed to continue unchecked. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in our next episode.